I'm trying to get some client work done, some editing, but I'm just so distracted by the GH6 spec leaks. So what I thought I'd do is just shoot a video, get some thoughts on camera, and then I can go and actually focus in on what I need to focus in on. You know, the stuff that pays the bills. If you're new here, my name is Caleb and I do freelance video with the Panasonic GH5. Hopefully with the GH6 soon. And if you want to check out more GH5 videos, GH6 videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Part of me is kind of bummed that the specs were leaked early before the official, live launch thing. But, I mean, that's how this stuff goes. So it's kind of interesting to take a look through some of these specs. And right off the bat, like some of the things that the GH5 has, the GH6 is going to have. Some of the things that we love about the GH5 is going to be on the GH6. Now, here's the thing. We should just call this a cinema camera. I understand it doesn't have an XLR input and other little minor features, but let's just call it what it is. It's a cinema camera. There's a ton of features on the GH6 that we loved from the GH5. For example, the waveform, vector scope, as well as the shutter angle, focus peaking, zebras, all those things are going to be on there just like the GH5. But now you have a brand new sensor, a brand new micro four thirds processing system, which is just going to enhance the whole user experience from the GH5. A couple of things I was noticing right off the bat that I was hoping it would have, and one of those is the IBIS. So it looks like it's going to have, the possible 7 steps, but then if you combine it with, a lens that has the optical image stabilization, the OIS, it looks like you're going to have 7.5 stops on the GH6. Now, I don't know how like all the algorithm and everything's going to work, but that's pretty impressive to have that many steps of IBIS on your camera. Let's just say the gimbal's probably going to hang a little bit longer on the pegboard. Another thing I noticed right away, other than, those specs that we already knew before all these leaks, but it looks like it's going to have the full V-Log. Now, if you have used the GH5, you know that it is the light version of V-Log, so it's not a full S-curve. Also, you have to order it and get it on a little card. It's physically sent to you, that software. It's physically sent to you. It looks like the GH6 is going to have the full V-Log, first of all, and that is already going to be installed on the camera. Thank you, Lumix. Now, supposedly there's supposed to be some kind of dynamic range boost system that's going to allow you to get 13 stops of dynamic range. Now, I think there's going to be some, quirks with that, but to be able to get 13 stops of dynamic range, I mean, that would be pretty impressive. And we'll see what that looks like as time goes on. Another thing I noticed with the V-Log, according to, the spec sheet, and I'm getting things from 43 Rumors. That's really where a lot of this is coming from. But it looks like the minimum ISO with V-Log is going to be 2000. So you're going to want to make sure that you get your ND filters ready. One of those things that a lot of us were wondering about is that autofocus, and it looks like they're sticking with that DFD autofocus system. Supposedly it's supposed to be improved. What I want to see is in a situation like this, where it is basically a talking head, I want to see if the pulsing in the background is gone. Now, I understand that there's going to be a lot of tests with, people like popping in. I'm probably even going to do it. People popping in and out of the screen, moving forward and backwards on the screen. That's probably going to hold fairly well with the autofocus, especially with like the eye tracking, human detect. Like that's probably going to pick up really well, but will it pulse in the background on shots like this? That's what I want to know. And if that is improved, I'll be happy with that. Now, I never used the autofocus on the GH5, but the reason I say this and I'm interested in the pulsing in the background is because if you have like live events or you have to, use multicams and you need to rely on the autofocus because that's going to be a big deal breaker for people. But I do think the autofocus is going to be really good on, let's say, a gimbal or something and you need to track somebody. I think it's actually going to be pretty good and more than usable. And I think another thing with the autofocus is that it really is kind of like a YouTube creator central thing. Having good autofocus on your camera is super important if you're making content like this. However, unless you're doing, some of those live events or other situations where you might have multiple people on camera, the autofocus isn't really that big of a deal because you're going to be using manual focus anyway to really dial in your focus. And I'm sure that the GH6 is going to have that focus lock like on the GH5. So you're going to be able to, go in there and bloop, just hit the person's face on the screen anyway, and it's gonna lock right in. So it'll be interesting to run some tests on the GH6 autofocus system and see if it really has eliminated some of that pulsing in shots like this. That's the main thing that I'm interested in with the autofocus. So we have some of the video specs, and this GH6, it is very video centric. Like I said, it's basically a cinema camera, actually better than some cinema cameras that you can get. So you have that 5.7K video, you have the 4K 120, 10-bit 420, which I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of that on YouTube as people get GH6 cameras out and rolling. I know I'll probably use it. But you have 800, 600 megabit per second video recording on here, which I don't know if my computer is going to be able to handle some of that. Another thing that really sticks out is that Apple ProRes internal recording. Now, it does not look like raw internal recording, but my guess is that we are going to have the raw option output to like the Ninja 5 or any other like external recorder. I really think we're going to have that external raw recording. And that may come in like a firmware update eventually at some point, but I think it'll be there on the GH6. So you have one CFast card slot, you have the SD card slot on there. I'm kind of debating how I feel about that. Like the CFast is, really great for some of those high quality or high speed recordings, but I know a lot of people use that dual SD card slot to, have their backup on there. So it'll be interesting to see, moving forward, how people feel about that CFast card slot on there. Looks like the GH6 is going to have some of those features like the focus transition, possibly even the 4K live crop. I haven't heard anything on the 4K live crop, but it looked like there was a feature about the transition, the focus transition. And those are just features on the GH5 that are just incredible to have. So maybe it'll be like a 5.7K crop so that you can have the 4K version of that file. Then there's some audio improvements that you have probably already seen, like the 4-channel if you're using the adapter, the XLR1 adapter. But it looks like it's going to be a great camera for video. I think in some cases, it might even go beyond, especially shoot settings, might go beyond what some of us were expecting. All right, I think I got all my thoughts out, so I'm going to be able to hopefully focus on getting this client work done. But let me know down in the comments your thoughts on some of these GH6 spec leaks, and we'll jump in there over the weekend and have a conversation. If you have time, it'd be awesome if you stuck around, maybe watch one of these videos that's popping up on your screen right here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.